Usually trust is mutual. With the government sneaking in to look at our phone calls and our emails, they obviously don't trust us. The question is, should we trust them when they are actually looking at all this thing, and at the same time they tell us that they're not, and only Mr. Snowden exposed them, with the government setting up poor people to catch them so that they have someone they found. I wonder.
Elliott is a man that I greatly admire and respect. He has done and accomplished so much, as I like to say, before, during, and after. Most of us who graduated out of the service into being peace warriors consider almost like 3 lives. But I'd like to read to you just one small piece here for introducing Elliott, and then I know his words will speak loudly on his own. Elliott Adams, past National President of Veterans for Peace, volunteered for the Army and served as a paratrooper in the infantry in Vietnam, Japan, Korea, and Alaska. He has served his local community in a variety of capacities, such as President of the School Board, Mayor of his village, Committee Chair of Boy Scouts of America, Explorer Post 17, President of Rotary, and Master of the Masonic Lodge. Elliott transformed from being a soldier to being a nonviolent warrior, applying his intellect and body to building movements to create justice. He utilizes international and domestic law as a means to end our war culture. He is a nonviolence and social movement trainer and has served in that role for Fellowship of Reconciliation, School of America's Watch, Peacemakers of Zohari, Student Environmental Action Coalition, Veterans for Peace, and War Resisters League. He currently works with the Meta Peace team and is co-chair of creating a culture of peace. Elliott dedicates his life to stopping all war and building just communities of peace. This work has taken him from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Mexican border to Canada, as well as internationally. He's testified before the United States Congress Judiciary Committee and attended Parliament in Canada, and has been arrested repeatedly for the cause. He just finished an 80-day fast of 300 calories or less in solidarity with the Guantanamo Bay prisoners and the Pelican Bay hunger strikes. My pleasure, Elliott Adams.
Thanks, Phil. You all know it's got to be a real honor to be introduced by Phil.
Yes.
Real honor. So anyway, I just heard that thing, I served in Vietnam, Japan, Korea, Alaska. You know what that means? That means I was a slow learner. But I did learn pretty well. So we want to talk about GITMO. How many people here want GITMO closed? Okay, why? Why do you want GITMO closed?
The people were detained there without any reason, without any charge. I've heard that a lot of people there just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There were Arabs in Afghanistan or something when we went in.
So
there are no charges are brought against them. They're never going to go to trial. They're just going to stay there till they die.
Okay, so people were there who were just innocently swept up. In fact, the U.S. government has declared that over half of them they will never file charges for and are free for release. Good. What else?
I don't like the idea of the American government basically occupying a foreign land and paying $100 a year, whatever it is, for that stolen land, and then using it as a prison camp to avoid the Constitution of the United States for incarcerating people.
Okay, 2 things. One is we're on an occupied land. We have no right to be there. The other reason is your point. They deliberately searched the world for the place they thought the law would not reach. I think there's something wrong with anybody looking for that. What else?
We've got a whole bunch of folks that are probably innocent in there, and I asked this question of the president. How does getting more people to hate us help keep us safer?
Okay, so it's a security threat. Yep, yes.
I think it's
Well, because it exists, because they're doing that, it makes it easier for the United States government to do things like snoop in on our email and all that stuff. If they can get away with it there,
They can get it.
gives more permission to do things to us.
Can I paraphrase that a slightly different way and just staying on the issue of torture? If they can torture in Guantanamo, they can torture in Pelican Bays, they can torture in the rest of our prisons. And as somebody pointed out to me recently, when we have that happen, it comes into our society. It doesn't stay in the prisons. It taints us all and it affects everything we're doing. Did you have something to say?
In a democratic society, in a democratic country, we should not have Guantanamo.
In a democratic country, we should not have Guantanamo. What else? Yes?
It moves the bar of what they consider permissible. For instance, I was involved in a committee that broke the story that they have started a special unit in Terre Haute, Indiana, where they send people that are Muslims and they consider terrorists, even though the man I'm helping represent was accused only of white-collar crimes and was never, ever even accused of terrorism. They sent him there as a terrorist. It's in Terre Haute, Indiana, and it was a headline story when it broke. And they do these things now within our own prison system after Guantanamo. It's kind of like
So it's
it has pushed out the permissibility of...
I like your idea of move the bars. Move the
Yeah.
bar ahead so that things which we could never do before, now we're doing here in the United States, and we're pushing them further than just what we're doing in GITMO, which is people we've brought from elsewhere, but taking our own citizens and charging them and giving them quote-unquote special handling. What else? Yes. Oops, I got both of you.
Serves a recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda and Taliban.
It serves as a recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Yes.
It's an ongoing and permanent stain on our legitimacy in the areas of democracy, human rights, rule of law.
Yeah, and why do you limit that stain to democracy, international? It stains everything. Yeah, yeah. We should shut it. Any other thoughts? Why should we shut GITMO? Yes.
puts our soldiers at risk.
It puts our soldiers at risk. If we torture other people, then our soldiers can get tortured because we've got an international law, the law that we spent hundreds of years of developing. What else? Any other thoughts? Yes?
Our president said he would.
Our president said he would. Okay, I got another question for you. Do you think we can close GITMO?
Sure.
Yes, yes? Yeah. And how are we going to do that?
Must be a dozen different ways.
Must be a dozen different ways. Well, let me.
Go home, close the place down, turn the keys over to the Cubans.
Hey, did you hear that? Close the place, send everybody home, turn the keys over to the Cubans. I love that. So, why isn't it closed now? And I'm going to answer this question myself. The reason it's not closed now, I am absolutely convinced, is that some politicians believe that there is political hay to be made by keeping it open, and some politicians are afraid that there's, on the other side, that there's political hay to be lost by keeping it open. And that comes to us. You know what? What is political hay? Political hay is public opinion. Same thing as public opinion. And we have the ability to change public opinion. If we change the public opinion so that all of the politicians recognize there's political hay to be made by closing GITMO, they'll close it. And that's what we're about here. We're about building a movement to shut GITMO down. So, a couple of things I want to talk about. We're talking about building a social movement. What's the biggest single indicator that a social movement will be successful? And I'll answer that question for you. Statistical evidence says that the biggest single indicator that a social movement will be successful is the percentage of the population involved, or per capita involvement. Not rocket science, right? Makes sense, right? That tells us what we have to do. Bring people in. The second biggest indicator of the success of a social movement is, I'll answer that one too. Again, you'll recognize it once I tell it to you. The way that majority cuts across demographic lines. In other words, if you have If all the bankers if all the white collar, white skinned bankers in the country support it, and you had a lot of support, it's nowhere nearly as powerful as if a wide diversity of people support it. So we know that we know two things now. We know what we have to do is bring more people in to the movement, convince them so that they believe we need to shut GITMO, and we need to make that cut across demographic lines. We got to bring in white collar, blue collar. We got to bring Republicans, Democrats, left, right, Christians, Jews, everything. It helps us. Now, there's another thing too which I want to bring up. There's an old principle that in a social movement you have to win the public over 3 times. 3 times, sorry. Little problem counting here. The first time, obviously, you have to get the people to understand there's a problem, right? That's easy. Secondly, you have to convince them that they have to oppose the existing policies. And third, you have to get them to support the alternative policies. Now, that looks like a subtle difference, right? Support the alternative policies instead of opposing the existing policies. But it's really critical. It's really critical. Let me give you the war in Iraq as an example. Very early on in the war of Iraq, really quite early in the war, we got the vast majority of the American public who to recognize that we shouldn't have been there, that it was a terrible place, and that we were running it badly, right? But here, what was going on then? We, the peace movement, kept saying, hey, it's a terrible place, it's being run badly, and it's a mess. Kept saying that. In other words, we kept saying the existing policies are bad. What was the administration saying? They weren't refuting any of those points. Instead, they were saying we shouldn't get out. So they were accepting the fact it's bad, but they were saying we shouldn't get out. How'd they say that? You heard that. Oh, if we leave too soon, we'll empower the enemy. Oh, incidentally, we heard all these arguments during Vietnam. Same damn arguments, right? But still, the point being is the argument is why we shouldn't get out. Not this that we shouldn't be there, but why we shouldn't get out. Oh, what's the other one? Well, another one is that if we pull out, there'll be a civil war there. As if they wouldn't be a hell of a lot better off with a civil war than all of our armaments. But that's beside the point. They say, what's the other? Oh, I know the one I love. We need to stay until there's an honorable victory. An honorable victory when you've invaded somebody else's nation. And incidentally, but the guys are dead? They'll be upset if you don't do it.
Yeah, they will have died in vain.
They will have died in vain, so they'd be upset if they won't do it. But my point being is that difference between convincing people that the existing policies are bad and supporting the alternative. So that tells us one other thing. Besides the other pieces we know we have to start talking about why we're better off with GITMO closed. Not just that it's bad, but why we're better off with it closed. So, do we need to talk about the power of nonviolence? Power of the movement, that we can change this? Let me do that quickly. What are some of the examples that the American people can rise up and make things happen? Important things. Come on, women. What about the women's suffrage?
Civil rights.
Civil rights. Women's suffrage. And what we're talking about women's suffrage, something people forget is, when we started this country, women weren't even allowed to own property. Let alone vote. What else? You have your hand up.
Rosa Parks,
Rosa Parks.
one person saying no.
One person standing up and saying no. Phil Berrigan said, know where you stand and then stand there.
And union movement.
Union movement.
50, 60 years.
Union movement. 8-hour workday, 40-hour work week, right to form unions. What else?
Litigation. You get the Supreme Court, like Umiate versus Bush. It says a prisoner in Guantanamo has a right to a writ of habeas corpus. To this day, that has not been effectuated because of the politics of fear, the politics of 9/11. It hasn't gone away.
So the Supreme Court has said we are required, the prisoners have the right to a writ of habeas corpus. Nothing's happened. Okay, do we want some other examples of yes?
Occupational safety and health regulations.
Occupational safety and health regulations.
Abolitionist movement.
Abolitionist movement.
Considered nuts in 1820.
What's that?
Abolitionists were considered crazy people in 1820.
In 1820, the abolitionists were considered crazy people. So the list goes long, and what I would do rather than carrying this conversation much longer, because I think we all know it, I would venture to say every single thing we care about in this country is important. The big things, the big issues, every one of them was won by the American people demanding it of the government. Usually they killed some of us in the process, because they always do that, and eventually forcing the government to cough it up. And incidentally, don't ever believe anybody can give you your rights. If they're your rights, right? They can't give them to you. They can take them away, but they can't give them to you. But they only take them away with your permission. Okay, so the next thing that we want to talk about is, well, let me do this. As long as we'll talk about this question of what we can do, we the people. I love Dr. King's quote. Remember Dr. King's quote in Beyond Vietnam? He said, "These are times of real choices, not false ones. Every man must put his life on the line in order to save this nation from her own folly. Each of us must choose a form of protest which best suits our faith. But we all must protest." So, and then they shot him. Yep, because he was dangerous, very dangerous. And they may shoot some of us, but that's okay. We've been down that road before. So, here, the next question for you is, if we're going to win people over, what are the arguments we need to win them over? Should we talk about that? Should we talk about how we talk about Guantanamo? How we talk about why we should be out of Guantanamo? What are some arguments for keeping Guantanamo open?
There's an insidious one that's going on in something here now with people saying, hey, the politicians should be making the decisions. We voted them into office, they should be making the decisions. I think we have to counter that.
I like it. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know about you folks, but I, for one, never want to find myself wishing somebody else, hoping somebody else is going to do the job. Oh, I hope the guy will hurry up and do it. Oh, it's so important. Oh, please do it. You know, it's the old story, better to light one candle than the curse of darkness. Even one measly candle. And that's the way I feel. If I let myself get in a position where I'm expecting somebody else to do the change, I get depressed. But as long as I'm doing something, even if it's just something, I feel better. Yes?
First they came for the trade unionists and the communists, but
Yes.
I wasn't one, so I didn't do anything.
There you go.
You know the rest.
We know the rest. Okay, so what are some other arguments we have to counter? What are the arguments we hear? Yes?
Some people think it's shut.
Some people think it's shut. I've heard that more than once. Some people think it's shut. So what do we do about that?
Educate them.
Educate. Make a lot of noise. Yes?
One of the arguments for keeping it open, I guess, is sort of like the argument for staying in Afghanistan or other places. Well, if we don't fight them there, they'll come over here. That's the only thing that's stopping them from coming here, is that we're fighting. We've got them pinned down over there. Ridiculous. So the same thing can be used for Guantanamo. These are all dangerous people who only want to kill Americans. If we let them go, they'll come here as soon as they can and kill us.
Okay, so what would you say the answer to that one is?
That it's just not so. Most of these people just were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Arab in a non-Arab country like Afghanistan. And some Afghans grabbed them and said to our forces, hey, we got an Arab guy here, he's a terrorist. And off he goes.
And they got paid in the process.
I got a bounty for it.
Yeah, they got a bounty.
This has been shown over and over again.
Yeah. Okay, so what's another argument for?
One of the things that I've heard is that there's no place in the United States, for some of them are allegedly guilty of terrible things. And if they are, and if they, they need to have a place to put them, and the argument I have heard is that there's no place safe or secure enough in the United States to keep them, and I don't buy that.
Nobody has ever escaped from a U.S. modern maximum security prison, period. End of question. Nobody. And incidentally, anybody who calls the guys down at Guantanamo the worst of the worst, you know what? They never were in a U.S. prison. Even a county prison. I mean, whew. And I'll say one more thing. If you ship the guys from Guantanamo up to a maximum security prison, the guards and officers there think you will have sent them a brownie post. I mean, they're just not. And also, of course, you start out with the worst of the worst. Half of them, the government's already said, are free to be released. Just off the top of the thing. Yes?
I happen to know about this because I'm chair of this committee for this poor doctor that got sent to Terre Haute. When they were going to send them, when it was going to be closed, to this place that's designed, it's actually, part of it is nice because they're used to them praying 5 times a day and things. Not nice, but certainly they were going to send them to this special place in Terre Haute. That was the plan. So as far as not having a place, they have a place. That was.
But there were enough people that said that it wouldn't work. And
I want to say one other thing about putting them in U.S. prisons. The people I've talked, I got both of you out there. The people I've talked to in the areas where there are prisons, they got no problem with it. They got no problem with it because they know nobody ever gotten out. Yes, Phil first.
Elliott, is it true that they have some of these guys at Guantanamo and they can't send them back to their countries of origin because the countries don't want them?
Okay. Where do we put them? We're already talked about we can put them in the United States. We can put them in a U.S. prison. I'm going to tell you something. I've looked at their records. You want to send them somewhere? Send them to my house. I'll take them. Honest, I got 75 acres. We can raise enough food for them. I'd be happy to have them come. 3 cities in the United States have said that they can go there. Berkeley and two cities in Massachusetts. And that's not a bad idea to do anyway. But more importantly, I came back to an issue you were making. Where do we send them? You know, oh gosh, you know, maybe their country doesn't want them. Maybe if they go there, they'll get involved with trouble. Maybe we should send them to some other country. You know, maybe their country doesn't want them or does want them and would torture them, et cetera, et cetera. It comes back down to what I remember my father saying to me, actually it's back in the days of Nam. He said, Elliott, you know, there's no problem facing this country today that is so simple that a committee of 5 intelligent men, in those days it was men, can't make it too complicated to solve. You know, how do you get them out of there? How do we close GITMO? Let them go and give the keys back to Cuba. So I think it's an important thing. And I also want to bring, very similar to what you said, I want to bring up, we all remember when, or many of us here, remember when Eugene McCarthy ran for president, right? I remember he ran on a ticket of saying we got to bring the soldiers home from Vietnam. And the media came to him and said, Mr. McGovern, we understand you want to keep bringing the soldiers home from Vietnam, but you know, that's really complicated. You know, we got domino theory, China, if we get out too soon, we'll cause a civil war. If we get out too soon, we'll power the enemy. You know, so Mr. McGovern, how do you think you can get them out of Vietnam? Do you remember this?
I do, both.
Right? He said, I think we could try boats and planes. Well, it's the same thing as where do you put the prisoners. If you want to make it complicated, you can. If you want to get the job done, you can do it in 30 seconds. It's not that complicated. Medea Benjamin took a group to Yemen and also to Pakistan and talked to the families there. The families want them back. Yo, big surprise. What's so complicated about that one? Who couldn't have thought of that one? So I believe that we can deal with this thing straightforward. It is a stupid comment. If you want to make it complicated, you can. And incidentally, I'm going to tell you this much. If we change public opinion so there's a political base for shutting GITMO, they won't even know. They'll forget all about those problems. Because what they're trying to do is make excuses for not doing it. Yes?
The legal issue, and I yield to my friend Albert Maldonado up there, Judge Maldonado on this one. But some of them who supposedly have committed bad crimes are afraid to bring them back here because they've been tortured. And so if they got into Judge Albert Maldonado's, he'd probably say, let them go, they were tortured. You know,
they can't use their confession.
It's inadmissible.
And they might write a book. That British guy wrote a book.
Well, They might be guilty of the most heinous crime there is, which is embarrassing the government.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
would they have to free them?
Do they?
Albert, would they have to free them if they
Should
can't
have been
accept
freed
it?
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did you hear what he said?
No.
They
He
should
said-
have been freed a long time ago.
Oh.
Says they just should have been freed a long time ago. I mean, after all, over half of them, 86 of the 166 they had, the government said or are clear to be released. 5 branches of the government individually looked at each case and said, this person is somebody we are never going to file charges on. We got no case against him. And incidentally, besides that, if he's released, there'll be no threat to the United States. We even went without sending him to court, without saying anything, we know all that. Over half of them. Yes.
For today, the sake of today's argument, are we talking about closing down the prison? Or are we talking about closing down the whole Navy base and U.S. moving their flag out of Cuba?
Well-
Because if it's the latter, this is something that's gone on since the 60s. Before it was used for that, it was just a Navy base to facilitate operations in the Caribbean and Central America. So if we couldn't close it before it became a torture prison camp, you know, how does this argument go any further?
So here's what I would say to that. Myself, I'd love to see it return to the Cubans where it belongs. We got no legal right to be there. Give it back. For sake of argument, that's a whole other argument. In general, what I'm talking about is what I'm arguing about is closing the prison. I'm talking about ending torture. What's that?
But keeping the Navy base there?
Well, I'm not dealing with that. I'd like to see it closed, but generally when I'm arguing about closing the prison, because that's dealing with the whole issue of torture. That's dealing with another big issue. If we could close the base down, that'd be great, but I don't want to. But I try to avoid that argument. And there's a lot of people who are really. Well, I know a lot of vets who served there, and they kind of act like it's necessary. I mean, I'm sorry. They say, oh, well, it's the only deep water base we have in the Caribbean. I'm saying, Norfolk, Virginia is only what, a day's sail away? I mean, come on. We don't have to put coal on our naval vessels anymore. We can fly drones over there. The F-15s will fly. I mean, I don't get it. But that's another issue. I don't want to go. So for the purpose of arguing this, I think for me, it's smart to stay on the issue of the torture in all the prisons and shutting the prison of Guantanamo down. I don't know, yes?
I don't think any of them have been tried and convicted.
Yep. I think 2 of them have been convicted. Is that something like that?
Military tribunals.
Yeah. Oh, incidentally, just my personal opinion. I don't see how you can have a fair trial when every single person is in part of the chain of command in an extremely hierarchical structure, from the guy who's sweeping the floors to the running person, to the clerk, to the judge, to the whole. But anyway, that's not a whole other issue. But anyway. Yes?
A serious political problem with closing Guantanamo is that the Republicans' strategy to discredit Obama and the Democrats is to just say no to anything they want. The Republicans weren't particularly opposed to closing Guantanamo before Obama was elected. When he was elected in 2008, he said, if I'm elected, I'll close Guantanamo. They decided they were opposed to closing Guantanamo because they're opposed to anything that Obama and the Democrats wanted, part of their political strategy.
Sure. And once again, if we build a political base so that they don't think there's any political benefit to doing it, I think that answers that question. Again, a matter of building that political base to make it so that everybody in Washington wants to close it. They recognize that that's the only road to benefit for them. So we haven't talked about religion, have we? Yes, go ahead.
Another thing about torturing these prisoners down there, they don't use the word prisoner. Everybody's a detainee now.
Oh, can I interrupt you and tell you a little story? So I was up at the White House and they grabbed me and they threw me to the ground. And so I have my handcuffs behind my back and I'm laying on my face in the dirt because my feet were above me because they were up on the sidewalk. And the guy says, "Now I want to tell you, you're not being arrested, you're being detained."
Got it.
I got it. Anyway, I'm sorry. And I will say, I'll interrupt you one last time. I did not have the presence of mind to say, oh, you mean like in Guantanamo?
We actually violated the Nuremberg principles on torture.
Sure. And international law, and the UN Charter. And all of those laws are part of our law because our Constitution makes treaties part of our law, enforceable in every state.
Article 3.
Article 3, thank you. I was thinking Article 9, but I knew it was wrong. Thank you. Article 3. I knew that.
That's your schooling.
What's that?
That's the schooling you said you were bad at.
There, that's right. Okay. So what are some other arguments? What about religion? What about religion? I don't care if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, if you're a Jain, if you're a Zoroaster. It's a violation of your religion. I think you can go to the Christians or the Muslims. You can go to them and say, if you allow your money and your name to be used in direct violation of the words of Jesus Christ, of the things handed down in the Sermon on the Mount, even going back to the words of Abraham, if you allow that, can you still call yourself a Christian or a Muslim or a Jain?
They've done it for 2,000 years. I don't think it's going to change.
Well, I never believe that things don't change. I'm going to tell you something. I volunteered for the Army, I volunteered to be paratrooper, I volunteered for Vietnam. So I changed. Now I recognize that there wasn't a war yet that wasn't stupid. I love General Eisenhower because he summed it up so nicely. He said, I hate wars only as soldiers can, one who has seen its brutality, its futility, and its stupidity. There you have war. Anyway, yes?
Excuse me, my ignorance. I would like you to explain what's international legitimacy, if any, that the big country occupy part of the small country, and why United Nations does not do anything about it. I'm sorry, this is if you will give me what's the legal how it started.
What's the legal justification for it?
Yeah.
None.
Guns?
Yeah, guns. I think it's a great question. I mean, it's a great point, and I think everybody in this room is thinking, what is it? How do they get it? How does our government keep violating the laws so much, and then keep saying that they're, touting the law for somebody else? All the other countries in the world that we think are supposed to follow the law, except us. National security. I believe Guantanamo is the biggest threat to national security that exists. Anybody disagree with me?
Why?
Why? Great. Thank you. Thank you. What a segue. Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, we know, those of us who are soldiers know, one of the ways they can get us to kill is to demonize the enemy, right? Pretty hard to kill somebody if you think that they're a human being. So depersonalize and demonize. You want to demonize the United States, all you got to do is point to Guantanamo. That's all you got to do. Nothing else. You don't have to do anything else, just point to Guantanamo. Oh yeah, they believe in freedom. Guantanamo. Oh yeah, they believe in justice. Guantanamo. Oh, they believe in the international law. Guantanamo. Right? And incidentally, here in this country, we see Guantanamo as a little dark spot way down there. Not the rest of the world. The rest of the world is this great big thing, and then the United States is kind of a little thing behind it. It's just such a big issue throughout the rest of the country. And, have you in a minute? Yeah, I'll have you right now because I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Well, not to be antagonistic, but I think the use of drones is more of a national security threat than Guantanamo. I see.
Well, let's not get in your argument whether drones are a bigger national security threat or Guantanamo.
That's my preference, my state.
My last campaign was drones, so and I have 2 court cases coming up on that. In fact, they just extended my order of protection against me. Oh, did you know about our order of protection?
Protect the handcuff case from the thief protector.
So we have an order of protection, which is a classic domestic violence order of protection right out of there, which protects a colonel on Hancock base from us. I think somebody forgot to tell a judge that he's the guy who's has the M16s and the M4 and the M1 and the S16s and the RQ9s. I think they forgot to tell him.
Court order?
Yeah, court order. It's a court order.
Veterans of Peace, or you
Me.
personally?
Well, each one of us individually.
You're not supposed to do something to the
Go near.
military?
Yep. We aren't supposed to do anything to Colonel Earl Evans, who I have no idea what he looks like, but I can't talk to him. And I can't go near his house, but I don't know where his house is. And I can't go near a school, and I don't know whether he goes to school or where a school is, but I can't do it. And I can't forcibly touch him.
Well, what happened? Is he someone in something that, some organization that, I mean...
Why him? Or why? What? The point is that it means that now, instead of me having to be arrested for trespassing, if I am seen by from the gate of the base, they can arrest me and the sentence can be 7 years. For violating order of protection. Yep. Now, will it be 7 years? I don't know. And we've pushed it pretty hard. I've been there but anyway, that's not the But anyway, but I've had it for a year, and it's been a year since October 25th was when we did that action. So it's been a year since, and we still don't have a court date. But they did just extend the order of protection. Incidentally, they also extended it after it expired. Anyway, that's really an aside. We don't really need to go there. So, if talking about Guantanamo and terrorists and why it's a national security threat, I don't know about Al Qaeda, but if I were there, I would definitely be hiring a lobbyist in Washington to keep Guantanamo open. If I were terrorists or if I were Al Qaeda, best advertising thing they could dream of. And even Cheney said it. We're making terrorists faster than we can kill them. So what are some other arguments? We talked about where to put them. My house. Be pleased to it. 3 cities have said they could take them. It's a simple problem. What about money?
Your money.
How much does it cost to keep somebody in Guantanamo?
$150 million a year.
What?
$150 million a year, they say.
Per person?
No.
To run the base.
Run the base.
$2.7 million per person per year. You heard me right. I said $2.7 million per person per year.
You could pay them to be pro-American.
That's right. That's right. In fact, what we're talking about, we got these ribbons. We want to put 2.7 million ribbons out.
Okay.
Wear them. A good topic. We'll talk about them later. Good topic of conversation. Okay, so let's just say, so we got 86 people down there who were there, held there for a year after they're cleared for release, and they're still being held there, and they're costing us $2.7 million a piece. So that's what, yes?
Would it be easier to let them out, send them someplace to buy a house for them?
How about paying him $1.3 million a year as long as you stay out of trouble? Every year we'll pay you $1.3 million, and as long as you stay out of trouble, if you cause any trouble, we'll take the money away from you. We'd be making good bucks there. So what does it cost? So we have the remaining 80, right? Who they want to keep in permanent detention without a trial. That's a creepy thing, a creepy concept. But anyway, let's just talk about money. We're just talking about money right now. $90,000 to put you in a maximum security prison. So you take $90,000 from the $2.7 million. It's really hard to even worth subtracting it. You still wind up 2.61 million. You know, it's not hard to even worth subtracting. It'd be so much cheaper to have them in a prison in the United States than to have them down there. So that's a good argument for the people who don't have any religious base, don't have anything else. What are some other reasons? Arguments we hear for why we can't release them. Yes?
This is statistically verified. We're becoming very unpopular in places we used to be very popular.
No kidding.
Let me just give one example. Indonesia happens to have the largest number of Muslims in the world, and they're not particularly devout in the Wahhabist type style. It used to be a kind of multicultural, free-flowing. And in 1999, most people in Indonesia liked the United States. They certainly liked the culture, said they wanted to go there, kind of liked Americans, thought they were sort of the good guys, thought the music was cool, stuff, all that kind of just, stuff. By the time 2003 rolled around, that had completely reversed from 80% I like America to 80%, America is the devil.
Yeah.
An accompanying hard swing to fundamentalism.
And that's not unique.
That's
not unique.
That's the most numerous. That's a very big market.
Other arguments for shutting GITMO. Have you ever heard the argument that if we release them, they will become terrorists?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the argument? What do we say to that? I can tell you what I say. First of all, if you believe that, you're not seeing the forest for the trees. I mean, think about it. Every single person, let's just take the 80, each one of those 80 has got, 10, 100 people at home who are really ticked off at the U.S. because you're holding out one? Just say 10. So if you release it, you've cut your number of potential terrorists by 1/10 to 1/10. And there's another thing, too. I think somebody said it, you said it, it depends on how you release them. If you throw a sandbag over their head, throw them face down in the dirt and cut their handcuffs and take off in your helicopter, leave them laying out in the dirt, it may be different than if you go to them and say, we made a terrible mistake. We're really sorry. We understand that we've tortured you. We understand we held you wrong. We're gonna pay for your treatment. And we understand you've been away from home for a long time. You need to get adjusted. We're going to pay for your adjustment. Pay your expenses for a little while, right? And if we spent $1 million a year in each one, we'd still be money ahead. I mean, it's so I think a lot depends on it. Now, what are the actual numbers? Recidivism of escapees. It was 2009 or 2010. The Defense Department said it was 2.9%. Isn't it just for reference? U.S. prisons, depending on the year, depending on the month, depending on the year, depending on the state, runs between the high 60s and high 80s. Oh, I forgot to tell you, that recidivism, you know what qualifies as recidivizing, whatever that is? You know what you have to do that, to qualify? Speak badly about the United States. Could you hear that back there? No, all you have to do to be part of that 2.9% is to speak badly about the United States. So, any other arguments you've heard? What?
You said that terrorism, Americans consider them terrorists, but not only that, there's a segment of Americans who think that Middle Eastern men in general are terrorists, so much so that they open fire on a Sikh temple. They don't know. Yeah. They don't differentiate. They don't know because they're just.
Yeah, I one of my local American Legion chapters, which I try to attend because I think it's important for me to be there. The guys there were telling me that they believe that every Muslim was trying to kill them. So that's an issue for us, and that's an issue for the other part too, for your point. So, what about the American Legion? What about the rah Americana? Yeah, America's right or wrong. What do you say to those folks about GITMO? Yeah, that's what I say. Hey, if everything that you salute the flag for, we're violating. If everything our founding fathers wrote in those eloquent speeches, we're violating. If the things laid out in the U.S. Declaration and the U.S. Constitution we're violating, I don't get it. Are you supporting that? Or are you saying it's okay that we've changed that much and we no longer do those things? There's a lot of arguments we have. There's a lot of arguments that come up. So the next piece we have to look at is, we've gone over some of the arguments. We've got some idea about how we talk about it. But the next question is, what can we do? What can we do to close GITMO? let me stop here.
Probably look at the example of School of Americas, and learn from the demonstrations against that.
Learn from previous demonstrations. Let me pause here and talk a little bit about my fast, because it's relevant. Why did I go on a fast? Any of you hear about why I went on a fast? I just educated myself a little bit, and I recognized these are people who mentioned they were picked up. Most of them were picked up on a bounty, completely innocent. They've been cleared by the government for release a year ago, and most of them have been cleared 2 or 3 times before that. And they're still living in what, no matter what you want to call it, is a torture chamber. The conditions they're living in is torturous. And in their desperation, they believe that the only way out of this is a pine box. And they exercise what I would call a First Amendment right, freedom of speech. Hurts no one but themselves. Nobody. And all they're doing is just trying to cry out. And I'm sitting at home thinking, what can I do? I can sit in my bedroom and cry? Do I want to do? I mean, what a terrible thing. I can go out in the backyard and scream. So I decided to go on a fast. I decided to deny food to myself too, in solidarity with them. At least it gave me a feeling I was doing something. Fasts aren't easy, incidentally. But we come down to the next piece. What can we do? We have a situation we don't like. We want to change it. And I'm going to tell you right out in the front. I told you before. I don't want to be involved in begging the president to do something, or saying, you ought to be doing it, or if so-and-so did it. I want to talk about what can I do? What can you do? What can we do? Go ahead.
First of all, Elliott, in my opinion, as long as we keep voting for the same people and perpetuate the same thing, the problems, it's going to stay open forever. We got to elect people from a different political party, because the Democrats and Republicans, you really can't tell them apart anymore.
I was going to say, I agree with you. You got to elect somebody from a different party. A different party.
No, I'm saying that we'll actually get the ball rolling.
Okay, but I think we can get that ball. I think we can create that other party, or get that ball rolling by creating a change in public opinion. If we get enough people motivated and active and involved, that'll happen. So what else can we do? We can vote. I like things sooner than that and more dramatic than that. What else?
Talk to people one-on-one.
Talk to people one-on-one. Can you do that?
Sure.
Can you do that? Can you talk to people one-on-one? Okay, I'm going to tell you something which I often don't bring up till later. But a friend of mine during the Vietnam War bought a 39-cent notebook. Not the Vietnam War, Iraq War. They're all the same one of those wars. Like, people say, is Iraq different than Vietnam? I say, oh, sure is. Iraq starts with an I, Vietnam starts with a V. I mean, come on. Bought a 39-cent notebook, right? And in that notebook, she wrote down the names of the 5 people she talked to about the Iraq War that week that she wouldn't have talked to if she hadn't had that notebook. 5 people. And pretty soon it's 5 people a day. Just a way of sort of concentrating your energy and keeping going. And I can tell you from personal experience, you all probably know it too, first 5 people are really hard. They really are hard. But once you've done 5, it gets easy. And by the time you've done 10, you really got it down. So the really hard part is starting, and that's one reason why the notebook's valuable. Is it just it disciplines you to, disciplines you to do it. Yes?
Up until 3 years ago, we used to have an event here the same time as the School of the Americas Against Torture. in front of the Defense Language Institute, which trains the translators who are used in the interrogations. They're not trained in interrogation, they get sent down to Arizona for that. In fact, the third woman to die in Iraq killed herself over her distress of what was happening in Abu Ghraib, and she's going to give the honor there. A self-inflicted gunshot wound.
So
we don't do it anymore because the person who was, we just let it slide. But we used to do that every November.
Okay, so where is that at?
It's a place called the Defense Language Institute.
The Defense Language Institute.
It is the elite language thing where all the military people are trained. All translators, military translators are trained there. So the people who translate at the interrogations were trained there.
So it's locally here, and we can go down there and demonstrate, right?
We used to do it every November.
Okay, anybody interested in doing that? Anybody want to go down there? Yeah, there's one, there's two, there's three. Okay, how do we organize that? Who's going to take a lead in organizing that? Somebody want to step forward and say, hey, look, I'll just sort of coordinate that. It's just a demonstration. Okay, I'll let you think about it. So there's a thing we can do.
We discussed that at our VFP meeting yesterday. Local demonstrations against military bases. Somebody made a proposal of it, and then we've done it as a chapter in the past when they were going to do a marine invasion on the beach, a huge spectacle for the local entertainment, getting ready for urban warfare. But in our discussion yesterday, we decided that to demonstrate here against the base could be, again, going back to the days of the Vietnam War, blaming the soldier for the policy of the Pentagon. And what is your cost benefit in going and demonstrating? Are you really going to make a difference outside these students' quarters, or should you go to the Pentagon, or should you go to a higher level for your demonstration? And that's just something I thought that we still have to consider.
Sure. Stuff you got to think about. My personal reaction is it costs a heck of a lot less to go here than it does to go to Washington. It's a lot easier. You got a handy buy. And I think a lot of the question is, like in all your messaging, a lot of your questioning is how you word it, how you pose a demonstration. You can make statements saying, look, I'm really not against, I don't have a problem with you. I'm not really against you as an individual. I'm against a job that you're required to do. In fact, I think you're being victimized, and I'm trying to keep you from being victimized. So I think you can use some messaging. What other things can we do? Oh, incidentally, when VFP does a demonstration down there, do they bring in the rest of the community?
Yeah.
Okay, great, excellent. What else can we do?
What are your thoughts about petitions versus demonstrations?
Well, I think petitions have one aspect. If I go up and say, look, I want to talk to you about Guantanamo, he's going to walk the other direction, right? I say, would you sign this petition? He says, what's it about? And the other thing about it is, you've got a name and an address. Petitions are great. You get names and addresses. You can go use those. So I think petition addresses can be good. More from the organizing point of view than, you may have got it already after my 15 plus years in elected public office. I don't believe that's where change comes from. I don't believe, okay, let me tell you this. How are we doing for time? After my second term of mayor, I was sitting in front of the fire one evening in one of my more cynical moments, and I thought, well, Elliott, I guess all you really ever did was create the least change to quiet the people.
What? Say it again.
Create the least change necessary to quiet the people. And I was thinking about it later, thinking, that was my job. That's the job of a politician. A politician's job is not to create change. You want one thing, you want the exact opposite. You're furious. What's my job? My job is to figure out where we can put that so you're quiet and you're quiet. You weren't happy and you weren't happy, but you aren't mad at each other. That's the job of a politician. When we talk about a political leader, we are talking about an oxymoron. They do not exist because they aren't supposed to exist. I didn't elect Obama, and I did vote for him, incidentally. But anyway, I didn't elect him with the idea he was going to be my moral leader. You know, I wouldn't want a Ron Paul in there to do everything he believes in. We elect politicians to do our work. Yes?
I gotta get my thought back, I lost it.
You too.
The dynamics have changed. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Obama doesn't have the authority to close GITMO. That falls, as I understand it, upon Congress. Is that correct?
What I would say is I don't give a damn. It's all irrelevant.
Okay,
If
your
the
opinion of giving a damn or not, does Obama not have...
he's commander of the U.S. military, it's a military base.
Okay, I understand that, but I've been told he doesn't have the authority to do it. It would have to be done by Congress.
I can guarantee you this. There's a million people, there's a million opinions out there, all going crisscross backwards and forwards because they're trying to avoid closing it.
But I think we need to know what to target. If Obama...
Congress passed a law that you can't do it without their approval. Who gives a damn? Abraham Lincoln fired generals. Abraham Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus in a war. So the president has constitutional authority. His advisor should have given him that advice. Give a speech. This is immoral. This is a violation of the international charters, Nuremberg, UN Charter. It's a violation. And as president, you can do all your votes you want, but as a commander-in-chief, I can shut it down tomorrow.
So you can do that?
No. And that's my opinion. That's just my opinion. You have congressional acts now saying they have to be consulted. I want to bring...
So I think it's important to understand that there's lots of laws. There's lots of laws out there that do get enforced. Lots of laws that don't exist that do exist that don't get enforced. Lots of laws out there that don't exist that do get enforced. It's a myriad of process. And in reality, it's public opinion. Let me give you an illustration of the Supreme Court. We know the Supreme. I have two of you. And,
the judge had a statement too.
There's two. There's the Supreme Court. We all know the Supreme Court, right? All it does is interpret the Constitution, right? So I can't remember what year it was. They ruled, well, it was certainly legal. I mean, it was rational that you not hire gays. 12 years later, they ruled the exact opposite. Constitution hadn't changed. And for that matter, the Bible hadn't changed. And for that matter, human sexuality hadn't changed. What had changed? Public opinion. Public opinion. There it is, the interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. Of the U.S. Constitution by the Supreme Court changed 180 degrees because public opinion changed. Okay, anyway, did you have another point? Yes?
I think the president could issue an executive order tomorrow saying that Guantanamo will be closed on X date. It'd be up to Congress to get together and say, no, you can't do that. Because if Congress doesn't do it and people knew about it, people know more about it, Congress wouldn't have the guts to do it.
And what I believe is that we can give the president the backbone to do that. And we can give the Congress the weak knees to not oppose it. And that's by changing public opinion. It's that complicated. And that's something we can do. We don't have to beg anybody to do it. We can go ahead and do it. There was another hand up here. Yes?
I don't want to sound pathetic, but I do support the Center for Constitutional Rights, which has very courageously and effectively represented the people in Guantanamo, run by the granddaughter of the Rosenberg, by the way, which is always a delight. So I do try to support the legal efforts to represent and publicize what's happening to individual people. Because here's the thing, when you talk to the American people, if you have a story with a face, you can talk more easily than if you talk in abstractions.
We talk about that as showing the face of the victims.
Right.
Humanize, just the way we demonized and depersonalized the enemy, you can also humanize the victims.
There's a book called Guantanamo Diaries about a young woman who went as a translator. And there's a story that just brings you to tears. She goes in there and there's this elderly man who's been held there. And he looks at her.
So do you have the name of the book?
Guantanamo Diary.
Guantanamo Diary. You may all want to read it. It's a good book.
The old man, tears come to his eyes when he sees her. He hasn't seen a woman in years. He says, "My darling, what are you doing in this hell?"
There you go. So what else can we do? What else we can show the face of the victims? What other things can we do? There's lots of stuff we can do. You write letters?
Read books.
Write letters? Who would you write letters to?
Newspapers.
Newspaper. Letters to the editor. Who else?
Dianne Feinstein.
What's that?
Dianne Feinstein.
Dianne Feinstein. Your congressman and your senators and representative. Who else?
President,
The President of the United States.
postcards work better than letters.
What else? Who else?
Sam Farsi gets Guantanamo, but we can support him to be more strong about it. He is against, he wants to close it.
Who else can you write to? The SOCOM, Southern Command? You can even call them. They'll talk to you. Incidentally, you call Southern Command, they'll talk to you.
Amnesty International.
Amnesty International? What about the Department of Defense? Secretary of Defense? Right? And incidentally, you know, when we talk about calling and writing letters, I mean, when I say that, I'm not saying you're going to write one good letter. You should write a letter a day. You can call them every day. Call them twice a day. They don't care. They don't know the difference. They just, you know, I always said that in this political things, letters come in, you tell your secretary to put the pros, the letters that are in favor on one side and letters that are opposed on the other side, and you get tape measure out. I'm guaranteeing you, your letter is not going to get read so carefully by the president that you're really going to convince him. The argument is you just get a letter up, there's another sheet of paper. I used to say that during the Vietnam War, if every mom had written the president a postcard, it would have ended the war, and it would have. Because it would have shown a kind of support in a country that was unrefutable. So what else can we do? Got letters? Yes?
You can teach peace in schools and universities.
Teach peace in schools and universities?
Around here, and I might add that I've been to the Naval Postgraduate School and lectured, and I'm very well received over there. Those
Wow.
are not stupid people. They are open people with good hearts.
And we know the message you gave them too. Wow. Wow. So what else can you do?
Picket military recruitment office.
Picket military recruitment offices. Now, how do you connect that to Guantanamo? Just asking.
Because the message to people that are coming there to be recruited is they shouldn't join the military until they stop torturing.
Until we stop torturing. There you go. That's a possibility. We have the billboard campaign. You want to hold that up, Sherri? So we got a billboard campaign. You can go to closegitmo.net, closegitmo.net. That's where our website. Instantly, we're trying to make that into a good educational tool. So if you have any observations about how we can make a better educational tool, let us know, because if we don't think there's a good one out there. But you can also go there and contribute to the campaign for billboards. Oh, you might even think about putting a billboard out here.
That might be good. How much would it cost?
You're going to check, because it varies wildly. It varies wildly on location and the area.
That's a particular campaign that I'm happy to help. Sherri, I'm local. My cards are over here, and that was designed by Tara Koff, who's the Veterans for Peace National Board, and his partner Ellen Davidson. I'm happy to work with anyone who's interested in investigating that possibility here.
Let's pass these ribbons around. How many of these ribbons do we want to get out?
2.7
million. Grab a ribbon and a safety pin. They don't have pins with them. Pass them around. They're a great opportunity to make a little bit of statement. They're also a conversation starter. I'm sorry, did you have a question that I left hanging? Or a point? Yes?
What's the name of the prison camp on Guantanamo?
Camp X-Ray?
Is that what, I don't know.
There's three. One was closed. Delta, I think, was closed. X-ray is open, and I can't remember the third. One of them has been closed.
One I
of
don't,
the three.
yeah.
They had 700 in there one time. Now
Yep.
they have 68.
So that's how the DOD would refer to them, as those two alpha identifiers.
I don't think you have to be that specific. I think you can refer to it. If you talk about closing down the prison in Guantanamo, they know what you mean.
Why don't you see it as a mixed message, closing Guantanamo or closing the prison?
Yep.
I think it just, if it was like Camp Hell,
Yep.
then I think it'd be more effective to
Well, you could say,
focus on that.
you could say Camp X-Ray. You could say stop torturing in Guantanamo. You could say release the prisoners from Guantanamo. So or close Guantanamo prison. So there's a variety of. There's a sign-up sheet there. If you wouldn't mind putting your names down there, So we can, we will probably, we haven't decided what we'll do, but maybe send out an email a month. We know nobody, I mean, I know me, I don't want, I get, no more emails. But
Interest that we've mentioned today.
yes,
By your name, and we'd be happy to help you pull those off.
yes.
On the billboard or something like that.
Did you get that? If you got a particular interest, you could put it beside your name and you sign it?
If you need more ribbons to distribute it at a march or a vigil, happy to supply those.
Oh, have these cards go chase the ribbons. Yes.
One other thing I'd like to say is we can help close Guantanamo is we can support Elliott. He's running around all over the country in his own money. We're going to pass the basket around. You can help close Guantanamo by supporting this guy today.
I'll start that off.
Well, I appreciate that. I after I got done with the fast, I thought, what can I do now? And I said, well, I have to go out and talk. So I just bought a ticket and went out. Don't know what I figured. I hope I survive, but that's all. But you gotta do what you gotta do. What about highway blogging? Anybody know what highway blogging is? Who can tell me what highway blogging is?
Highway blogging?
Yeah, highway blogging.
Does it involve taking your clothes off?
No.
Just checking.
It's just a name for going out by the highway with big banners with your clothes on.
Okay.
Or you could wear, maybe if you had a big banner and you had shorts on and your shoulders were bare, everybody would wonder what was going on behind.
Well, Coke Pink did that once because the media wouldn't pay any attention, so they flashed their tits. Just once. And then that was...
So, anybody know what highway blogging is? It's just getting up on a highway, especially up on an overpass, and holding banners. Holding big banners. I was doing one time. I was kind of discouraged about the whole thing, and I started counting cards, and I realized that while I was there, 15,000 cards had gone underneath me. 15,000 people had seen that sign, and I suddenly realized, it seemed like I wasn't doing anything. And incidentally, I thought about afterwards. They're just my audience. They aren't they're just people, ordinary people, just going to work and minding their own business, who are exactly the people we're trying to bring in because they're the people who are hardest to reach. Yes.
Have you been on Any Goodness, Democracy Now?
I have not been on Democracy Now.
You ever thought of pursuing that?
Well, I don't know how to pursue it. I'm doing what I can do.
Talk to Brian, he knows that.
Talk to who? Brian Wilson.
We actually have had one of our pastors from GITMO.net who works for Democracy Now! International, was on the show when he did a nasogastro feeding, which is something maybe Ella can talk a little bit more about the tube feedings that have been done.
Force feeding.
Yeah, force feedings.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide audience there.
So, yes.
I've only been in this area a couple of years, but what I've noticed is it's a series of small little communities, but we all kind of identify ourselves as Monterey, Monterey Bay. What about if we were to start a campaign where we say we want Monterey to become the first city in the United States to take action to close Guantanamo? So what you do is you could write a letter to the editor. This is what our goal is. These are who we are. This is why we want to do this. We then have people go to every single church and talk to the pastor there and say, we would like to come before your senior council or elders or whatever it is and ask if you would support this. Would you go on the record as saying, we want to close Guantanamo Bay? Every time you get a church that supports that, you can issue a press release. And you get one church, 2 churches, 3 churches, 4 churches. There is a farmer's market here every Tuesday from 3 to 8, and you see people set up tables there. We could have a table set up with this, tell people this is what we're about. Would you sign our petition, please? And say we get 300 names, 500 names. We could have individuals who live in the various communities. I happen to live in Monterey, but there's Seaside, there's Marina, there's Pacific Grove, there's Carmel by the Sea and all that. Eventually go to those city councils and say, we have 350 people here from your town. They would like to go on the record as saying, we want Monterey to be the first community in the United States to be opposed, to ask to close Guantanamo Bay, and this is why. Mm-hmm. We also have MPC, Monterey Peninsula College. We have, of course, the Naval Postgraduate School. We've got CSUMB. We have Hartnell College there. We could somehow ask somebody in the faculty, would you let us come there and make a presentation? I go to these Gen Train classes, and they have once a month, they have a different speaker come in and talk on a different topic. So you could slowly start to elevate the conversation. And the great thing would be if we could get the Monterey City Council to say, we are against Guantanamo, we believe it should be closed. If we become the first city to do that in the United States, that's a news item.
It's a trendsetter.
That is a news item. Santa Cruz, we know where Santa Cruz would be on this issue. And Salinas, we could form a little enclave here. These 3 towns in the Monterey Bay area are opposed to Guantanamo. That's a national news item.
National. So is anybody interested in trying to help with that? Anybody got another piece that can contribute to that? Yeah, back there? There's one. Who else? Yeah, there's one. Okay. There's one, another one. Now we're beginning to get to the quick while we're to think about it. Do you have a way you could support that? Do any of you have a way you could support that just off the top of your head? Do you have a piece you could add to that project? Yes.
I'm a volunteer here and also on the board of the Monterey Peace and Justice Center. So we provide this facility so that people can come together and discuss and meet and plan.
And do you have a mailing list?
Yes, we do.
So you have a mailing list you could use?
Peace calendar, I think there's over 1,000.
You got a peace calendar? Okay, those would work. Anybody else want to jump in with him? Kind of neat, cool idea, huh? And incidentally, one of the interesting things about a campaign like that, even if you don't win the campaign as far as getting them to vote in favor of it, you had all that time talking about it, educating. You got the media going. If you present a resolution to the town board or the city council, it's likely to make it in the paper, right? There's a reporter there, so you can use them to heighten your issue just because they are who they are, even if they don't want to support it, just because you're talking to them about it. And even if you don't succeed in doing it, you will have had a lot of chance to educate people about the issue. So highway blogging, we talked about highway blogging. Just trying to think of some other ideas. Yes.
Well, we did this in Salinas in front of Sam Farr's office on Guantanamo. And we had some young kids that were interested in theater, and they were much more flexible than me as far as kneeling down in orange suits with the heads. My back starts to hurt after a little bit. But so we did a theater with huge closed Guantanamo. It made quite a bit of press. It made the front page, in fact.
Made the front page. There you go. We talked about not getting news media. There's a little bit of street theater, and they made the front page.
Well, it's partly because the Californians across the street, and now all they do is walk across, So,
well,
it's true.
Yeah. It's a local newspaper, and you use the council to draw attention to it. That's what street theater is all about. You all know what I mean by street theater, right? Anybody not know? I mean, any kind of theatrics that illustrates the issue and draws attention to the issue and helps deliver the message, deliver the pain, expose the faces of the victims.
And our congressman came out and posed with us with the signs and said he's opposed. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Close GITMO. Sam Farr holding it.
Wow.
Oh, he's against it. He's good on that issue.
Wow.
Sam Farr is one of the most progressive people in Congress.
The right wing calls Saddam Farr.
Okay, so gastronasal feeding. There's two aspects of that. Speaking of street theater, same thing. In Portland, when the light goes red, they go out in the middle of the street, it's blocked off, and simulate the gastronasal feeding. We've done a number of simulations in D.C., for example, and they're very effective. But then there are also people who actually do it. Andres Contreras has done it 5 times now, I think. I did another 5. Anyway.
We used to do, back in the old days, we used to practice on each other.
Wow. But anyway, that's a dramatic piece of theater. Not me, but they're great people. So we've talked about a number of things. We got some ideas of some campaigns we might be running. There's a couple of them here. And more than anything else, I'm asking you to do something. Better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. You know, A.J. Musty, when he used to stand out in front of the White House with a candle, you know that story? A.J. during the Vietnam War, of course, he was an activist from way before. He's getting pretty old then, but he stood there. He would stand out there in the evening, every evening, go out and stand out in front of the White House with one candle. And a reporter came up and said, A.J., you know you can't change the world standing out here with a candle. A.J. said, I'm not standing here to change the world. I'm standing here to keep the world from changing me. Do something. So, we've come a long ways. When I started my fast, just taking that as a point, when I started my fast, there's been dozens of rolling fast. We didn't talk about rolling fast, did we? Talk about rolling fast? Y'all know what a rolling fast is? A rolling fast is a local thing where you take Monday, you fast Monday, you fast Tuesday, you fast Wednesday, you fast Thursday, you fast Friday. So everybody's just fasting for one day, but it's all organized as part of a group, and it carries on. And oftentimes, if you do it, if you go to Witness Against Torture or our website and over to it, you can see there's a list of things you can do on a day you fast. You know, call your congressman, things you can do to draw attention to the issue. But it's
every time you feel hungry, then why do you feel hungry? You go make. I'm serious.
I'm with you. I'm with you on this. Go for it. You're absolutely right. Every time you feel hungry, go make a call.
Or send a postcard. Do something.
But it's a powerful thing. My wife's involved in a rolling fast, and it really she finds it really concentrates her energies and keeps her aware of the issue and the issues. And it's a way of feeling community too, because you're connected with a group of people, and you can do it publicly also. Some people do it publicly. Portland's had a lot of our chapters have had rolling fast going. But anyway, we've come a long ways. When I started my fast, there were almost no rolling fasts going. Well, there were rolling fasts going on. I'm sorry about that. But certainly in VFP, there's been a lot of them started since then. When I started my fast, nobody would have thought that there was going to be a Senate hearing about closing GITMO. And I want to pause on that one. When somebody asked me whether I thought how I felt about the Senate hearing, and I said I'm really excited. And they said, "Oh, you think it'll make a difference?" I said, "No, it won't make a bit of difference." And they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Look, the difference is whether you see it as being prescriptive or descriptive. For me, it's descriptive. For me, it showed that for the first time in 11 years, some Democrats thought it was politically expedient to have their name on a record in terms of closing GITMO. Were they going to use it? Were they going to use the hearing to close GITMO? Let me tell you this. I spent a half an hour in my senator's office while his aide tried to figure out, and along with the aide of Durbin, who was the one who called the hearing, they spent a half an hour trying to figure out whether there was a transcript for the hearing. And if there was, where it was, and find this. So obviously the senator didn't give a damn about it, or he wouldn't know or he would have had a transcript.
Did you get the transcript?
No, never did. It wasn't one. I think there's a film, but no transcript. But my point being is that they wouldn't have called that hearing if it wasn't for a shift of public opinion. Nobody would have thought when I started my fast that I say my fast, Diane's fast, Brian's fast, Tarek's fast, a few other people, but a few of us. But I just think in my terms. Nobody would have thought that there was going to be a special envoy appointed by the administration or a special envoy appointed by the Department of Defense. At that time, Democracy Now! Never had anything about GITMO. The Washington Post hadn't had anything about GITMO. So we've come a long ways. Are we done? No. I like to think of that saying, on the plains lie the bleached bones of countless millions whom, at the dawn of victory, sat down and waited, and in waiting died. We've come a long ways, we've got a long ways to go, but we can't quit now. Just got to push it over the hill. Thank you all for coming out. Oh, As long as we're here, I got one more thing to say. As long as we're here, do you all know A Force More Powerful?
Yes.
It's a great video. What it does is it takes about 5 or 6 nonviolent movements and talks about them about a half an hour. We're going to give one to the chapter.
Thank you.
We hope that you will. I recommend listen to one segment, half-hour segment, and then having a discussion. And you can have a discussion about the effectiveness of nonviolence. You can have use it for deconstructing for strategy. You can use it for a lot of stuff. But it gives you a much better understanding of the power of nonviolence and the effectiveness of it. And I highly recommend it. And of course, I hope you share it with the community. Great. Thanks.
Elliott is a dedicated warrior for peace, and he's a model for all of us. I thought about giving you a plaque or something, Elliott, but you don't want plaques. I know you have plenty of those. Instead of that, I hope you'll be satisfied with a copy of my book that's signed.
Thank
to
you so much.
So on behalf of myself and our Veterans for Peace chapter and the Peace Coalition of Monterey County, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
For everything.
This means so much more than any plaque.
Yes.
So much more. Especially for us dyslexics. Thank you so much for going out, and I hope that you'll join this struggle and we can move this movement ahead and shut GITMO, and not beg the politicians to do it, but make it happen.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, my friend.
You're the man.
You're the man. I'm humble in your presence. Man, looks like everything's